We should not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We should not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statements of whom we have ample supply. The task we set before ourselves is very simple as well as very beautiful one. To train these people, as we have found them to be perfectly idle, life just where they are. So we will organize our children into a little community and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way, in the homes, in the shops, and on the farm. Peace, family, and welcome back to Rooted in Muddy Waters, the podcast. All right. So what I just read to you all is the philosophy of the General Board, occasional papers number 1. You can look this up on the internet, and you can do a little bit of research. But that was the start of the Board of Education, of the General Board. The General Education Board. They've changed the names over the years, but that was the start of it. All right. That was the start of it. All right. And also look up John D. Rockefeller. If you don't know anything about him, look him up as well. All right. And if you haven't guessed it by now, this episode is about homeschool. All right. So we're going to get into it. And I just wanted to read that because, again, we're going to be talking about homeschool and our decision to homeschool, how we came into homeschool, all the things homeschool. All right. And I guess the question that I asked myself when we first decided to homeschool our children, or when my husband first told me he thinks we should homeschool our children, is that, am I a teacher? Am I? I don't know. But we're going to talk about it. So again, what I just read to you was basically the philosophy for the General Board of Education. Again, it is public knowledge or public information. Go on the internet, read it. Read it good, read it well. Look into the founders, look into how much fiat has went into them creating this system. And look at the history of education. The history of, how these schools were created, when they were started, and all the jazz. So just look into that stuff. If you want to know, you want to know. Like, at this point in life, like, there's so much information at your fingertips. And if at the end of the day, it's like, are you even willing to look for this information or to seek this information out? If not, okay. But if you are someone who is seeking that type of information, that type of knowledge, the internet, the library is going to be your friend. All right, so let's get into it. So, deciding to homeschool our children. Well, as you heard from my previous episode, I am a stay-at-home mom. And around the time I was staying home, it was just me and my son. My daughter was still going to public school. And she started having issues in school. And issues that I couldn't quite understand. Like, it didn't make sense to me. And my husband was like, well, why don't we just homeschool? Why would you take her out of school? You're home. You're already home anyway. You're a stay-at-home mom. You're already home anyway. And, let's be honest. Like, is the school serving her? Like, we went through public school. Like, did it really serve us? A lot of the shit that we know now, things that we taught ourselves and then we learned after the fact. So like, let's try it out. Let's see if we let's try to homeschool the children. Again, am I a teacher? You know, so I was like, okay, all right, let's find out what we can do to homeschool. So the internets looked to see what I had to do to homeschool. Found out that there was actually homeschool laws. Found out that there's actually specific laws for each state. Each state has different laws. There's some states that doesn't really have any laws. Like you can homeschool your children if you want to. You don't tell nobody. You it's your business, which it is. It is your business. And there's some states where you got like this. The rules and the laws is just like crazy as hell. And then in the territory that I'm in, like it's kind of lax. You just do a couple things and you get to homeschool in the way you want. Let's go through the whole like emotional roller coaster of deciding to homeschool our children. So this is something else that happened all around the same time that my family and I were like making certain changes in our lives. And homeschool was also one of those changes. And so again, scared, didn't know what I was doing, was very unsure that I had what it took to even homeschool my children. I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I can't teach my children. I can't teach them. Like, I don't know how to do that. And think about it now, it was just a very, I don't want to call myself stupid, but it was just a very inaccurate statement to make. But I was scared in the beginning. I was unsure in the beginning. Again, knew no one who was homeschooling their children. Nobody in my circle at the time. My two close friends, they didn't have any kids. Didn't know anyone that was homeschooling their children. Not a soul. I went through public school. My brothers went through public school. All of my cousins, like my aunts, my mom, my grandma, they didn't homeschool. They sent our ass to school. Whether they was home or not. They didn't care. Take y'all ass to school. Like, and that's how most people think, right? But that's all I knew. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know nothing else. Like, homeschool children. And then I thought, like, we don't homeschool our children. And when I say we, I mean people that look like me. Melanated people. We don't homeschool our children. Boy, I'm a homeschool children. Like, what? Like, it's just like that, like, how I'm talking is not making any sense. That's how my brain was going when my husband suggested that we homeschool the children. Like, what? Huh? What? I'm not a teacher. We don't do that. We send them to school. The school can teach them. And he's like, no, we should homeschool the children. I'm like, okay, great. True, I am home. I'm home. I'm home all day. At the time, Elijah was still an infant. He wasn't really talking much. Just hanging out at the house with me. Eating. And that's about it. Eating and sleeping. And trying to talk, but not really saying words. So, yeah. So I was like, okay, we're gonna try this out. So again, went to the internet, did a whole bunch of research, found out what the requirements or the law was for the territory that I am in. Found out what I had to do as far as getting her out of school. If you guys want me to actually go through that process, I can do that. Just let me know in the comments if you want me to go through the actual process of what you need to do if you are wanting to take your child out of the public school system, and the type of documents that you need to create and have signed and sent in and all that stuff. Like, let me know if you guys want that in detail, and I can do another episode and we can talk about that. So just let me know in the comments. You can also email me and let me know if that's something that you all want to like dive deeper into, to get a better understanding of it. But like the requirements and what you got to do to like take your child out of school, Also, if you're, seeking any type of assistance as far as like understanding your laws and requirements for the territory or the state that you're in, you can hit me up for that too. And again, we can have that conversation. But that's basically what I did. Like I just, just did my research, did my due diligence. I did my research, figure out what I had to do to take her out of school, to get her started with homeschool, what the requirements were, figure out, again, that's another situation. I was like, okay, what does homeschool look like for me? What does homeschool look like for us? Like, do I have to homeschool this way? And that's what I was thinking. Like, I was thinking like, okay, I had to homeschool a specific way, and I also thought, oh, well, we got to get up early in the morning and we got to start our day. That shit didn't last, but we'll talk about it. But thinking that, oh, it had to be this certain way, as to us going into homeschool, and it was an interesting journey in the beginning, but a very scary one. And after doing all my research, after looking into what I had to do to start homeschooling, and then again, like me still being in the mindset of school and the way school is, like I tried to incorporate that to our life at home and it just didn't work. The child was pushing back, I was pushing back. We were both frustrated. At the end of the first year, we both were frustrated and burnt out. And I'm like, I don't want to do this shit. This is too hard. I don't want to do this shit. And it's another time where I almost had a breakdown. And I told my husband, I'm sending her ass back to school. I can't do this. And then it's again when my husband called me off of the cliff because I was about to jump. He called me back off the cliff. He got me off the cliff. And his question to me was, why are we doing this? And it took me a minute to figure out or to come to words with what our why is. So had to figure out what my why was. And my why was, and still is because I want my children to not be trained to be slaves. That's one of them. Two, I want my children to be able to be taught in a way that fits them, not them being forced to fit the shoe of the educational system. I want them to be able to be taught in a way that fits them, that caters to them, that feeds them mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and educationally. I want them to be comfortable with who they are and not feel the pressures that are put on them in schools. I want them to focus on their interests and what they're passionate about. And I feel like homeschool does that for us. Homeschool allows me to create a curriculum for my children that fits them as individuals. My daughter's curriculum versus my son's curriculum, two different curriculums. Why? One, because they're age gap, they're different ages. Two, because they have completely different interests. The interest that my daughter had when she was 5 is a completely different interest that my son now has at 5. They're two different people. So why am I going to try to teach them in the exact same way? They have different interests. So why am I going to try to teach these two people who are complete opposites in the exact same way? It will not work. It does not work. What I've learned is that with homeschool, I can create a curriculum to fit the individual child versus having this overall broad curriculum and making the child fit into it. What I've learned is that since taking my child out of public school and homeschooling her, she has been able to thrive in a way that I'm not sure she would have been able to do inside of public school. because it's not just the learning aspect, because that's a big part. It's a big part. What they're teaching and what they're not teaching. And I'm going to tell you guys a story, but let me finish this thought. It's not just that. It's the child or the children being able to just be themselves and be. Not being pressured to fit in, not being pressured to be liked, or teachers talking mad crazy to them, or them just, let's be honest. Y'all went to public school. Y'all know what it is. Imagine you went to public school, so and you know what it was like then. Imagine what it is now. So it took me taking my child out of school, public school, doing my own research to realize that the school system isn't what we think it is. It's another business. It's a business at the end of the day. And what is the business going to always do? The business is going to do what's in the best interest of the business. That's what the business is going to do. The best interest of the business. The difference with public school, and I might be ranting, whatever. My iPad died, so we're going to go with the flow. My notes on my iPad died. This is where we're at. All right. What was it saying? Shit. Look at that. Oh, the difference is with the school being a business, what's different is they put on the guides or put on this front as if what they are doing is in the best interest of you and your child, when on the back end there's doing what is in the best interest of their business. Let me say it again just in case you didn't understand me. School is a business. Colleges, they are businesses. And they put up this front as if what they're doing and the decisions that they make are in the best interest of you and your child, when on the back end, they're doing what is best for their business. It took me taking my child out of school to see that. It took me reading things like the philosophy for the General Board of Education and when it was founded, who it was founded by, and all the other shit that person did. Again, do your research. John D. Rockefeller, look him up. It took me, and don't get it twisted. So I've never been a parent where I just send my child to school and that's it. I let the school do all the teaching. I was never that parent. I was very active in my daughter's life when it came to school. I was there for awards. I was talking to teachers. I was going to the open house nights and stuff like that, meeting her teachers, talking to them and all that stuff. Wasn't on the PTA because I had to work. But, and it wasn't my area. It just wasn't. Just not where I needed to be. But why? Very active. And very active in her life. If she, helped her with her homework, make sure she did her homework, make sure she understood her homework, make sure she worked on her handwriting, if there was ever a dip in her grades and I knew something was going on, okay, what's going on? Like, if her grades dipped even a little bit, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what's the problem? So I was that type of mother where I was very active in her education. And it took me pulling her out of school, and this is where my story time comes in. Pull her out of school to realize that these people have been lying to me the whole entire time. These people had been lying to me. So they put my daughter in what is called AAP classes, which was basically for her age at the time. was like an advanced class for her, advanced math and reading class for her grade level. And she started having problems when they put her in this class. And I'm like, well, if she tested in these classes and you said she'd be in these classes, like, why is she struggling in these classes? So I go have conversations with the teachers and try to figure out and try to understand, like, why is she having these problems? And, they was making it seem like, oh, well, she doesn't work fast enough. That's what they told me. She doesn't work fast enough. I do time tests, and, she doesn't work fast enough. Listen, my baby's nickname is Grandma. It's her name for a reason. Okay? So I know she doesn't work fast. She don't do nothing fast. She take her time with everything. I.e., her name is Grandma. Okay? So, okay, went through that with the teacher. Because she was basically failing her. Because she wasn't finishing her time tests or her timed assignments. And so she was getting low grades on these assignments because they were incomplete. And the teacher was putting these in as failing grades, and she was failing. I'm like, well, so who I am trying to well, Mary, you got to work faster. You got to work faster. No. So again, took her out of school and realized that my child was, at the time she was in 4th grade, did not know basic multiplication. But they had her in AAP classes. Okay, so why would they have her in AAP classes? Okay, Toya, go ahead and do some more research. Did more research, and you read things such as the No Child Left Behind Act, and you read what that actually means. And you also understand and you research and you read about these programs, the AAP classes, and how the school gets certain funding for a certain amount of students that are in these classes. Oh, so if they don't have children that actually score what they should be to be in these classes, then they put the children who don't belong in these classes, and then these children fail in those classes because they don't belong in those classes. Because it is a harder level of math and reading for them at those grade levels. But you're like, well, why would they do that? Why would they put these children in these classes if they know that they don't need to be in there, and that these classes are harder for them, and that they may fail? Oh, well, there's the No Child Left Behind Act. And also, they have to get their funding from the state. But these aren't things that we typically think about as parents when it comes to sending our children to school. I know I didn't. It's not until now that after I didn't take my children out of school that I realized that this is all the things that are going on behind the scenes, behind the curtains. It isn't until now that I'm asking these types of questions. And then I suggest that everyone ask these types of questions. Why would they put your child in a program that they know your child is going to suffer in? That they know your child is going to struggle in? Why would they do that? And I know I'm probably going off on a tangent. Get used to it. This is what it is. This is what it is. Get used to it. But ask yourself that question. Why would they do that? Your baby bring home a letter. Oh, my baby in AAP classes. My baby is so smart. Your baby has been in this class or half the year and is struggling. Grace is dropping. Why? Your child is in AAP classes and don't know basic math, basic multiplication. Why? Your child is in 7th grade and reading on a 4th grade reading level. Why? Why? Ask those type of questions. And I had someone say to me, well, when does it become the parent's responsibility? Now, I'm not going to put all of this on the school systems. I'm not going to do that. And I know I'm supposed to be talking about me homeschooling, but let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation, right? I'm not saying that this is all the school's fault. I'm not saying that. Because parents are also to blame. One, because we put so much trust in them to teach our children that we take the back seat. When I say we, I'm not talking about me personally. I'm not talking about me personally. I'm just saying we as a people, as parents, we take the back seat, right, to our children's education because we put them off to them. It's easier. It's easy, right? It's easy to give the children to them to teach them. But then you get mad and you get upset about the assignments that are given, or you and you have a problem when the teacher try to correct your child, like, oh, ain't nobody gonna tell me how to raise my child, ain't nobody gonna do this, ain't nobody gonna do that. What the hell do you think they doing? What do you think they're doing? Yes, the schools are to blame. The system is fucking broken. But also, yes, stop taking a back seat to your child's education. Stop taking a back seat to raising your children. And some people can get mad. Guess what? I don't give a shit. Because again, take it from someone who's been there. I did it. I did this same thing. I believed these people when they told me that my daughter should be in an AAP class. And when it wasn't until I took her out, I realized how much she was struggling. How much she didn't even know basic multiplication. I'm talking 5 times 4. 9 times 3. Like basic multiplication. And it wasn't until then that I realized that. And it was then that I realized I'm not sending my children back. I'm not doing it. So what do? We worked on the things that she needed help on. And we stayed on those things until she got it, until she understood it, until she could comprehend it. And then we moved forward. Schools don't do that. You either get it or you get left behind. You either get it or the teacher's moving on. She doesn't have the time to stop and wait for you to understand it and for you to get it, for you to comprehend it. Most of the time the children go home and do homework, the parents don't have the time. But then we wonder why not kids, because they're not goats, children. We wonder why our children don't have the tools they need to be successful. We wonder why. Again, I went all through public school, graduated high school, went to college and was hit with the door. So unprepared. At least in the territory that I'm in, high school, public school does not prepare you for college. If you choose to go to college, it does not prepare you. And again, I'm going off topic, but it's still on topic. Listen to what I'm saying. If you choose to homeschool your children, there is help out there for you. There are resources out there for you. And a lot of them are free. What you might pay for is you might pay for someone's time. Someone to sit down and talk to you and tell you step by step what to do to homeschool. That you might pay for. But all the other resources, most of them are free. Right? But if you can't homeschool your children, or you choose not to homeschool your children, at least be more active in their education. Find out what they know. Find out what they don't know. Find out what they're struggling with. Don't believe everything these people are telling you. Do the work and figure it out for yourself. Does my child really need help in this area? Is my child really doing well in this area? Because those grades on the piece of paper, those letters on a piece of paper don't mean shit. They don't mean nothing. And I'm telling you this from experience. At the end of the day, they don't mean anything. Fun fact, grades don't mean shit till you get in high school anyway. Another fun fact, everything that they do up until the grade of 9 is repeated over and over. Everything that they learn is just repeated every single year. Just add a little bit more onto it. It really don't count to high school. That's when it really counts. All right. So I chose to homeschool my children, and my reason, my why, is because I wanted something different for them. Because I wanted them to, and I'm looking off because I'm looking at my son as he's sleeping in my room right now. I'm just looking at him, just sleep, just passed out. And I'm thinking about all the things I want for him, all the things I want for my daughter, and the type of individuals that I know that they are. I know that they're not made for the public school system. And when I say that, what I mean is that they're not the type of children that are going to easily conform to the school system. Teachers talking to them crazy. They're not going to, not these children. I'll be getting called every day. Especially that one. You know? But they're allowed to just be themselves. They're allowed to have interests and passions about certain things and be able to learn those things now, not after they've graduated high school. They have a curriculum that fits them, their interests. I'm able to teach them about who they really are, not the lies and the whitewashed bullshit. I get to teach them their true history and who they are. I get to give them a different perspective. I get to give them a different perspective other than that they came from slaves. That their ancestors were beaten and forced to work for nothing. I get to tell them truth. To show them truth. Not just tell it to them, not just show it to them, but to actually educate them on truth and who they are and where they come from. So that they're not lost. There's things that my children are learning at 5 and 14 that I didn't know until I was an adult. Passed high school and dropped out of college. Teaching them how to do things like garden and be able to take care of themselves and preserve foods. Teaching them how to use herbs to heal their body. Teaching them how to identify plants in our backyard that may have medicinal benefits. That type of learning, they're not going to get that in public school. And some people are like, oh, well, I can't afford. Bullshit. That's an excuse. Because we homeschool on one income. What do? I set a budget. I don't spend over $300 a year for homeschool. Sometimes I spend way less than that, depending on what I bought the year before. Again, free resources. You don't want to homeschool? Then just say that. But don't say you can't do it, because you can. You can. Because let's be honest, are these children really learning? Are they really getting what they need? And I'm not talking about no private schools or nothing like that. I'm talking about public school. The everyday, regular, schmegular public school that most of our children are going to. Are they really getting what they need? Or is it just a daycare at this point? I drove by a high school the other day, and there's a sheriff office on the same property as the high school. And I immediately thought prison. Immediately. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. See what happens when my iPad dies and I get off topic. You see where we at? Like, goodness gracious. Anyway, Homeschool. So yeah, um, homeschool just like motherhood. It ain't easy. It's not always easy. Especially the transition out of homeschool, it wasn't easy for us just because I had to like you. If you look into homeschooling, you're gonna hear the term D-school, which is basically like getting away from what school is, like getting away from like public school and the way that that structure is set up, and not bringing that into your homeschool experience in short terms. That is basically what it means. So I basically had to de-school myself because again, I went to public school and that's what I was used to. So I had to de-school myself to um not do certain things like waking up 6 o'clock in the morning to homeschool. Hell no, didn't work for me, didn't work for her. Ugh. Or trying to set her schedule up similar to public school. That didn't work either. Or trying to teach the things that public school teaches. Most definitely did not work. It just wasn't aligned with it with us. And so it was a struggle in the beginning. Once I de-schooled myself and we threw all of it out the window and started over, things began to move a little bit smoother for us. It was still a transition because it was hard for her because, oh, she misses her friends. Oh, she wants to see her friends. But then after us having conversation after conversation on friendship, what it is, what it isn't, and how people grow up and all that stuff, like, then she was okay. She was okay with it. Now she's 14. If I ask her if she wants to go back, she tells me no. I often do that just to mess with her. Or, like, all right, I'm going to send you back to school. And she's like, no, you're not. You're not. It's not what you're doing, lady. You're not going to do it. Which I'm not. Just joking with her. But, now she doesn't want to go back. And she's enjoying the things that she's doing. Elijah, my son, he's just getting started. Just getting started. I got years to go with him. But her, she's now high school grades. And if you ever see me talk about grades or grade levels and you see me do the quotations, because I don't really, I say it so that people can understand where we are, but I don't really go by the grade thing. My children learn what they want to learn at the speed that they want to learn it. So if Elijah is 5 and he's working, supposed to be in kindergarten, and he is reading on a second grade level, cool beans. But to me, he's just reading it. He's reading at his own speed. She's in high school. She knows Japanese. How many children? Quick question. How many children do you know that are freshmen in high school and they know Japanese? My daughter is one of them. She's the only one I know. But yeah, so that's what I had to do. I had to de-school and step away from thinking that it had to be this way, or thinking that it could only be this way. And it's again like what I had to think, like, what does homeschool look like for us? What do I want it to look like for us? What do I want this experience to be for us? And so I had to create that, and we did. And we've been homeschooling for about 5 years now. My oldest don't want to go back, and my youngest will know nothing else. And they're happy, and I'm happy because they're happy. And I get questions like, oh, one of the most, I don't want to say dumb, I don't want to say stupid, but it is a question that I get all the time that is kind of annoying. And it's like, oh, how are they socialized? Listen, being a homeschooler does not mean that we are stuck in the house, there's bars on the window, and we don't ever go nowhere. That's not what homeschool means. All right, like, we go on field trips. We've been to the field trip to the airport twice. We go to the museums. My daughter, she was in gymnastics. She was socializing with people that way. She's not in gymnastics anymore. But the children still socialize. Like, they talk to you. They go places and they talk to other people. They're still socialized. Like, that's like another dumbass excuse. Like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. There's co-ops, there's homeschool groups, there's homeschool associations, there's homeschool groups that you can join if you're worried about your children socializing, or you can just take your child to the park. Take them to the park. There's children at the park. They can socialize with the children at the park. Take them to the museum. They can socialize with other children at the museum. There's different homeschool events in your community. Take them to these things. They can, like, I don't, like, socialization is the least of your worries when it comes to homeschool. Children at home get homeschooled, they socialize plenty. Okay? My son's always talking to me. We socialize. All right? That's that. Where else? I feel like this episode is a little bit all over the place, so we're gonna chop it up and end it soon. Again, this is what happens when my iPad dies and my keynotes or my key points that I want to hit are not in front of me. This is what y'all get. It's kind of all over the place, but what I speak is truth and honesty. So yeah, this is what you get. But yeah, my husband introduced the idea to me that we should homeschool. I was scared at first, wasn't sure, didn't know nobody, did my research, found the philosophy for the General Education Board or Board of Education or whatever it's called. And I was like, well, that's interesting that they would say that. Okay, let's do some more research. And then I figured out how I had the process I needed to take my child out of school. And I also figured out what my laws and requirement was for the territory that I reside in, that I'm domiciled in. The first year was hard as hell. I threatened to send her back because she was driving me crazy. We was just bumping heads, fighting, going against each other on this homeschool thing. And after I was able to de-school and separate myself from the way that I assumed that it needed to be, and actually create a homeschool style and a homeschool environment that actually worked for us and our family, things began to get a lot easier and a lot smoother for us. I create my children's curriculum. We don't do box curriculum. I create their curriculum, which is basically a combination of me either one, actually creating the curriculum or the assignments or whatever it is we're doing, and also pulling from other resources to create a curriculum that fits them as individuals and what they're interested in, what they're passionate about. My daughter, she is interested in becoming a doula. She paints, and she's also very passionate about Japanese. Her curriculum fits that. All right. She's also a very hands-on type person, and depending on the subject, she doesn't really need a lot of my help. She's more so of, let me do it, and if I need your help, I'll ask. That's the type of person she is. Now, I can already tell with my son, he does not like repetition. I got to keep it exciting and fun for him. Don't like repetition, right? And he is also very interested in things like how things are created and how things are made. So he's in the process. He also likes talking about body parts. He has a anatomy encyclopedia, and I read to him from it sometimes before bed. His choice, not mine. But that was the type of things that he wants read to him before bed. So he's interested in body parts and anatomy, and he's also interested in robots and putting together things, which is a combination of both my dad and his dad. Now that I think about it, my husband is real sciencey type person. He even has a degree in science, and my dad he's an actual mechanic. His business is fixing and working cars. That realization was very weird for me just now. Anyway, that's the type of child that he is, but he doesn't like repetition. He doesn't like doing the same thing over and over, so I have to keep it spicy. I have to keep it exciting for him. But he is a very hands-on learner. He likes to do things with his hands. He doesn't so much like to read a lot. He likes to be read too, but if it's something that he has to read, he doesn't want to do it. But he likes to be read too. But he likes to do physical things, like things with his hands, like projects. He calls them experiments. Like, that's what he likes to do. So, just understanding that. And that's another thing. So, real quick. So, if you are going to homeschool, again, the number one thing is to de-school from that, right? Separate yourself from the way that you think that a school is ran, or like just like don't think about how you were schooled or how you were taught in school. Don't do that. Create a homeschool environment that works for you and your family. That's first, all right? And throw out the excuses. I don't want to hear the excuses. Don't want to hear the excuses. Throw out the excuses. Do that, all right? De-school and create a homeschool environment that works for you and your family. Don't think that you have to have a homeschool room. You don't. I don't have a really big house. I don't have a really big house. Have a normal size house like everybody else. So we don't have the space for a homeschool room. So the whole house is the homeschool room. Wherever we see fit, that's where we homeschool. Hell, we might homeschool outside on the lawn on a blanket. We may go to the park and homeschool. It's whatever works for you and your family. Or if you do want to have a homeschool room, okay, have one. What I'm saying is that you don't have to have one to homeschool efficiently. You don't have to do that. Okay? And what else? Understanding both your child's child's learning style and your teaching style. All right? If you don't know what those are, I don't want to go into it right now. We can, if you want another episode about it, we can do a whole episode on learning styles. If you want it, let me know in the comments. But you can Google it. Learning style. All right? There are different learning styles. Every child learns differently. Okay? As I was telling you, my daughter, she's a more of reading. I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna do it. But if I need your help, then I'll come get you. My son, he's very hands-on and he likes participation. He always wants help, even when he don't need help. He wants help. So 2 different type of learners right there. So knowing your child's learning style, and then also for you, knowing your teaching style on how you teach, and also realize that you can't teach 2 different children the same way because they're different. They're 2 different people, all right? 2 different personalities, 2 different interests. That's what you can do, all right? Also know that homeschooling does not have to be expensive. Again, I set a budget every year and I don't go over that budget, all right? I don't go over that budget. Sometimes I'm way under on that budget, so we got some extra spending money, all right? So create a budget, all right, for your lifestyle. Again, I homeschool on 1 income stream. That's from my husband. He brings home the bacon, all right? We don't eat bacon, but he brings it home. Anyway, and you can homeschool. You can homeschool, I have a friend that I started homeschooling and then she started homeschooling her son. And she's a single mom and she homeschools her son. So it is very much possible to homeschool your child on no matter what your educational background is. I didn't finish college. The things that I don't know, I learn and then teach them to my children, or we learn it together. All right? You can homeschool your child no matter what your educational background is. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to major in sociology. You can teach your children. All right? You can also homeschool no matter your financial situation. All right? Again, we have 1 income. 1 person bringing home a check. All right? We set a budget and we use free resources. We use used books. We get free books. People are always giving me books. If you hear this podcast and you need books, reach out to me. I have about 3 big totes of books that I'm willing to exchange. It's called a book swap, where if you have a book that you want to give away and no longer need, but I have a book that you need, we could just swap the book. I might not need the book, but somebody else might need it that comes along. All right? Hit me up if you need books. What else? If you choose not to homeschool your children, then I suggest you not take the back seat when it comes to your child's education. And what I mean by that is to be more active. Don't just believe what these teachers and these schools are telling you. All right? Don't just solely go off of a piece of paper with some letters on it. Because just because your child is bringing home ABs or BCs or ABs and Cs does not mean that your child comprehends what they need to be able to comprehend to be successful within their education. All right? Just because they bring home A's and B's and they have them in AAP classes does not mean that your child knows basic multiplication. Does not mean that your child knows how to read or spell. All right? Now, again, I'm not just talking shit. I'm speaking from experience. All right? Now, am I saying this is the case across the board for every child? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you're not going to know until you do your due diligence and you pay attention to your child and your children to know if they're learning what these schools are saying that they are learning. That's all I'm saying. All right? All right. Again, I know this episode was a little bit longer than usual, and that's because I got off topic and going on my little tangents. Sorry, not sorry. This is what it is, all right? If you would like to check out some homeschool resources and other things pertaining to homeschool, check out my Instagram, The Cultivating Mom, where I do basically share my homeschool experience, put out some nuggets about homeschool, and also create and sell some homeschool resources that are very inexpensive. Also, if you would like to support me any other way, you can also check out my other business, Arapel Wellness, at Arapel Wellness on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Also, follow Rooted in Muddy Waters on Instagram and TikTok. That's it, y'all. That's all. That's it. I love y'all. Again, this episode was a little bit all over the place. Take what you need and leave the rest. All right? All right. As always, sending peace and love your way. Later, loves.